Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butchchester. You guys know who I am, and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about our topic. When it feels slow, God is still working. So, you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea because we are about to get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. It is a motivational day today, so that means that we are coming for the heart of those that are tired. We are coming to help motivate the faithful men and women who listen every day to know that it is okay to be in this phase and stage of your life today. Now, the one thing that we are always going to remind you to do is to trust God. And today, we want to remind you to not only trust God, but to stay the course. So, if you're feeling like the promise is stuck in one phase or another, then today's message is for you. When it feels slow, God is still working. So, today's episode is inspired by Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Now, you may not see movement yet, but that doesn't mean that momentum isn't building behind the scenes. God is not idle. So that means he's intentional. And just because you don't have the full picture, it doesn't mean that the brush hasn't touched the canvas. When we think about the things that happen or work in nature, far too many times they are going on behind the scenes, under the ground, in the soil, as opposed to everything happening live and in person in front of our eyes. Behind the scenes is just as important, if not sometimes even more important, than the thing that happens in the live. It's behind the scenes, it's under the ground, it's beneath the soil, it's the seed that has been planted that really does all of the work. And many times, that is where God is also doing his work. So let's look at the perspective of the waiting season isn't wasted. So let's be honest. Slow seasons can feel unfair, especially when others are getting their moment faster. You're working hard, but you're seeing very little return. Or perhaps the promise feels far, but your faith still shows up every day. Let's look at those. Others are getting theirs faster. Now, we see an example of this sometimes when we go out to eat. You and your group and another group were seated round about the same time, and they get their food first. You start to think, well, I hope the chef didn't forget about us. I hope we're next. Especially if you had to wait a little while to get your table. People start to get a little hangry, right? And in that, you start to shift the way that you feel about things. You start to understand stuff from a different perspective of what it means to have to wait for your turn to come around. Or perhaps it hits a little bit closer to home and you're still at that restaurant, but it's everyone at your table who has gotten their food and you didn't get yours. Then you really start to worry. Did the chef forget about me? And lo and behold, just a few moments more, here comes your meal, hot and ready for you. Life is like that sometimes. God asks us to trust the process, to believe that even though others may be getting their soup and salad before you do, don't worry, everything is working for your good. Or maybe you're looking at working hard, but you're getting very little return. This has been true for far more people than probably they would like to admit to. They have put in 60-hour weeks, but the return seems to only be that of 20 hours of effort. If you're an entrepreneur, you know that many times we work really long hours, and our season can ebb or flow depending on where we are along that line. Paths aren't always straight, they're not always easy. And sometimes we have to understand that in our lifetimes, there's a little off roading that may be required. There might even be some mudding involved. What does that mean? It means that sometimes the path is not going to be that of the freeway, smooth sailing, easy going, and simply just keep moving forward. Sometimes it's going to require us to take the streets as opposed to the freeway, or take a side road or even a detour. It might even require us to go on a path that we weren't even sure was there in the first place. Or perhaps you have been called to be that trailblazer. You are the one that is making the path in the first place for others. There is so much work to be done on so many ideas. So, if you are someone who is in the beginning stages of making the path clear for others, or you're someone who has found that there's a detour up ahead and you are telling others, or perhaps you are the one that is on that smooth road. It doesn't matter where you are in the journey is still important. The journey should still be enjoyed because you're still getting to your destination. So, sure, we may be working hard and seeing little return at this moment, but every seed that is planted will grow into something bigger than its initial seed. We must be patient and make sure that it is receiving all of the sunlight, that we are watering it and nurturing it as best we can. And just like the journey that we are all on, it too will get us to our destination. Maybe you're dealing with the promise that feels far, and your faith still has to show up every single day. That is so true for our visionaries and our dreamers. You have been given the gift of being able to see it in its finality, but you still have to get there. Being a dreamer or being a visionary is truly a gift. You are able to express that thing that others need. I remember hearing the story of an interview that was done about Disneyland, I believe it was. Maybe it was Disney World, but let's just say Disney. And the person made a comment and said, "Oh my goodness, it's a shame that Walt didn't get a chance to see it in its final stages of being built." And the response was, "What do you mean? He was the one who saw it first." That stuck with me because that is so true. People think that the only time you see what it is that you're talking about is once it has manifest in the physical world. Dreamers, visionaries, those that are makers and doers, many times you see it in its infancy. You see it before it's even a thing to be seen. It's an idea in your head, and God has blessed you with it, and you will be the one that will bring it to fruition. So sometimes the promise is there. It feels so far, but please be patient. It will arrive. But here's the key: heaven's pace is never in a rush, it's always right on time. Sometimes the slow season is actually a secure season. God is doing root work. God is doing character work. God is doing capacity building work. Because something is delayed, it doesn't mean that it is a delayed blessing. It is better than a premature one that you're not prepared to carry. God is doing the root work. That's the behind the seeds. That's the in the ground stuff. That's tilling the soil. That's making sure that the perfect place has been found so that when you plant that seed, it is on good ground. God is doing the behind the scenes, moving people into place that need to be there for you. So many times we want to do things in a hurried fashion, in a way that we hurry up and get there, and then we arrive, and those that we needed aren't there yet, and we have to wait anyway. But you wait with a little bit of a grumble in your heart. Now, if you had gone at the pace that God had planned, everyone would have arrived at the same time, making it a smooth transition into the next phase. So, communication is key, perspective is key, but understanding that sometimes the pause is because it's needed. The character work comes into place as well. We've heard about the people who win the lottery and within a year or two, they're broke again. And people say, how in the world could you have lost all of that money? Because they weren't prepared for it. They didn't understand the resource that they had, and they unfortunately didn't use it the best way that they could. Character work requires for us to remember that in our lifetimes, sometimes we are the little baby bird trying to peck our way out of the shell. That pecking process is needed. It helps to build strength of that little baby bird. As human beings, many times we see that and think, oh my goodness, this bird is struggling. Here, let me help you out. And we'll crack the shell just a little bit so that baby bird can poke out faster. But the truth is, we didn't help that baby bird at all. That was a required step of the process. That was the character work. So, if you find yourself in a situation where you are pecking at the shell, trying to get out, trying to move on to the next phase and stage of your life, remember that the cracking of the shell is necessary to build up your strength, to build the character work that is needed. Or perhaps it's capacity building work. Absolutely. Did you pray that prayer of, Lord, increase my territory? But you forgot that increasing your territory meant that you needed more hands on deck, that it meant that you needed more time vested in your business? Surely you did not think that you were going to increase the territory, but not have to increase the things to make sure that said territory was properly tended to. So if you have a small territory, then you could maybe do that with one, two people, or maybe you could even do it alone. But when you have increased your territory and it requires 10, 20, 100, 300 people. Have you done that? That's the capacity building work. Now, I know that in this day and age, we don't always have to have employees that check into a physical building. We can hire staff from the various resources and tools that are available. We can have virtual teams. We can utilize the services of businesses who give us virtual assistants and the like. But that's still capacity building work, making sure that those things are done. So the next time you feel that something has slowed and you're not sure of what you need to do next, ask yourself, is God doing some of the root work, some of the behind the scenes stuff for me? Is God asking me to do some character work to get something correct, proper, and true about myself? Or is God doing that capacity building work, preparing me for my bigger and better? Think about it this way. Noah had to build the ark before a drop of rain fell. David was appointed and anointed long before he ever wore the crown. And Jesus waited 30 years to start a 3-year public ministry. So, if God is taking his time with you, it's because he sees the weight of what you've been called to do. Understand that it is bigger than you may realize, but it is something that you need to trust the process about. Alrighty, everyone, it is time for us to take a very short break, but when we get back, we will continue this conversation. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butch-Chester. Today we are talking about when it feels slow, God is still working. Let's jump back into that conversation. So sometimes we have to realize that we have to keep ourselves encouraged through the process, that we have to do this because it's our dream, it's our vision, it's something that we are trying to accomplish. And not everyone will understand what we're going through, what we're dealing with. No one knows quite like God. So, what a great partner to have when you're going through this phase and stage. So, how do we stay encouraged when it feels like nothing is happening? Let's talk real life. You're trying, you're trusting, but the truth is really starting to take a toll on you. It's easy to feel discouraged when the fruits of showing up don't seem to be showing up. Well, there are 3 reminders I want to share with you to help keep you grounded. Number 1, God works in silence, more often in sound. The lack of noise doesn't mean that there is a lack of activity. Now, I know what you're going to say, but Dr. Angela, I know. We find in Genesis that God spoke and it happened. Yes, that is sound. But we also find so many examples of God working in the silence, of the behind the scenes, of placing people along the path that need to be where they need to be, of sending his angels, of sending a word to the heart of the person. That's silent. That's quiet. That's not loud. That's not in front of everyone. That's personal. So if God is working in a personal way, in the silence of your being, then please understand that he is still working just the same. There will be a time for there to be noise, for there to be fireworks, even about the thing that you are doing. But the silence is golden time as well. Number two, every seed you've planted still counts. You're sowing in obedience, and that makes the harvest something promised, even if it's not visible yet. Now, we're all familiar with the scripture that says that we only need to have faith the size of a mustard seed. Now, if you've never seen a mustard seed, you're going to be totally surprised at how tiny, tiny a mustard seed is. Yes, I understand that sometimes your good intentions with your mustard seed are going to fall on soil that is not fertile. And that's okay. That is a part of the phases and stages of our lives. That putting your seed in soil that wasn't fertile, that's part of your character building. That's part of the character work. And that's something that you learned not to do. So you won't do that again. When presented with an opportunity to plant your seed in not the proper soil, you're not going to do that because you're going to know. Absolutely not. This soil is not rich. I can feel it. I can smell it. I can see it. And I heard that this is not good land. And because of that, you will know that it is best for you to keep your seed and to keep along your journey, keep along your path until you find that fertile soil. So every seed that you plant, it still counts, even if it's something that you've planted in a learning season of your life. Number three, rest is not the same as being stuck. If he told you to pause, to be still, to wait, that pause is protection, not punishment. Far too often our society tells us that if we rest, that we're lazy bones, that we are not good whatever, business people, good nurses, good teacher, whatever it is, right? That you're just not a good human being because you wanted to pause. Well, we all tend to understand that professionally speaking, when things are being built, there are always moments of pause. There are times of inspection. There are times where you are waiting for the resource to come. There is time that things must cure and set before we go on to the next step. Now, let me not pretend to know too much more about construction than what I do. But I think we all know some of the basic stuff from watching that particular channel, right? So we know that the foundation, before it is poured, it must be etched out. The soil must be dug up to a certain depth. It must be staked out. And then the cement must come and be poured. And once it is poured, it must cure. All of that takes time. And in taking that time, it must be done properly, or the foundation will be off. You cannot build on concrete that has not cured, or there will be a crack in the foundation, which in the long run will cause even more problems. So while they are waiting for that to cure, something else is going on in a different phase, in a different stage. And each time that there is something done to the home or to the building that is being built, there is also a pause for inspection. Someone who is wise, someone who knows that can come in and say, this is up to par. This is proper and true. Proceed. There are different people called to different aspects of this building, right? So if we know that when it comes to the things that go on in society, then why don't we do that in our personal lives as well? Sometimes we have to remember that we are at a different stage or a different phase of that building. If you are in the beginning stages of the build, then your rest will come after stage or phase one. But if you are the last stage or phase of the building, then your rest comes first, and then your work comes. But it all is perfect and true. If you are the person who gets to hand the keys to that property owner, you are just as important as the person who built it. Each person has their responsibility and brings joy to that person in their own way. You're living in your dream house? An inspector came by and looked at it. Thank you. Right? Do you have those beautiful windows that you've always wanted? Yep, somebody put those in for you, didn't they? Thank goodness that they knew how to do that. Because now you're looking out of the windows that are beautiful and they make you smile. Perhaps you were the one that handed off the keys. And now you can have that housewarming or your grand opening for your business. Yeah, everyone is important, but everyone had a phase or a stage that they needed to rest or pause in order for it to come to pass. So, resting, pausing, isn't the same as being stuck. So, let me add this for more clarity. Your faithfulness in this slow season is what builds the muscle to carry what is going to happen next. So today, don't lose heart. Don't despise the pace. God is not slow, He's strategic. You're not behind, you're building right on schedule. Thank you, everyone, for spending some time with me here today. I hope that once again I have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.